Welcome to the second edition of the Legacy Warriors podcast for this week. Yesterday we covered Cage Warriors 194, but at the same time we also have LFA 218 making its international debut, if I'm not mistaken. Well, they've had some events in Canada, I'm not sure if that counts, but they'll be going over to Spain this Saturday morning, at least for everybody across the pond here, with a decent card. They got an interim title fight in the main event, but there are only 7 of the 10 fights with odds as of about less than 24 hours from the fights actually taking place. So I tried waiting as long as I could before the odds came out. They just haven't come out. So for the Joan Rodriguez and Ol Hetleflat, as well as the Malik Badiani versus Bruno Susano and Santiago Paiva versus George Groza fights, I won't be breaking those down on this podcast because I don't have odds for them, and I'm not going to waste my time with the amount of fights that I've already had to study for this week. Not to mention, I still got to finish up on PFL Mina in terms of written breakdowns. That will only be on the Lock of the Night Patreon page. But if there are odds that end up dropping for those 3 fights, I'll put my breakdowns and picks on the, or at least my picks for those 3 fights in the comment section below. So, again, I doubt they will. By now, they should have already had them, but they don't as of right now. So I'm not gonna push myself to break down those fights. So we got 7 fights to still talk about for this LFA 218 card. I want to get through this pretty quickly because I'm dying over here. It's been a lot of work this week for the amount of events that I got to cover. So let's get right into it. First matchup up, Reda Abdellaoui coming in at minus 300, going up against Alexandre Carole, who comes in at plus 250. Abdellaoui comes from a Moroccan background, but he actually calls Spain home. He trains alongside high-level regional fighter Cogliandro Duke, one of the more well-known Spanish fighters in the world. Abdellaoui ended his amateur MMA career on a 10-fight winning streak. He's now 2-0 as a pro. Showcases a very solid all-around game from slick striking to some good grappling, and I expect that to will him over here over Carole here, who is a French fighter who comes into the LFA with a 4-2 record. Carole has shown some issues in his grappling game, which is how he's lost both of his fights, both of his losses. First round submission. Seems to be a decent striker, has a good all-around game, or at least a decent all-around game, but I feel like this is a fight for Abdellaoui to get the dub. But minus 300, a little bit wide. I don't want to completely disrespect Carole here, but I think that this is a fight for the Moroccan to get his hand raised. Our next up, we got Oscar Mendez coming in at minus 140, going up against Daniel Holt, who comes in at plus 120. Mendez brings in a 6-2 record to his LFA debut. Very weird fighter. There's a couple fights that I saw where he won by decision, but I did not at all believe he deserved to win those fights. So he might have a little bit sketchier of a record if those decisions were, given out properly. Seems to be an all-around fighter. Prefers the striking round more than anything, I believe. Has a couple of submission wins on his record as well, but more often than not, he looks to attack his opponents with his striking. He's going up against Manchester top team's Daniel Holt, who loves to play the villain. This guy's a very charismatic guy on social media, very fun to watch, very fun to listen to. He's 3-0 as a pro. He went 3-3 as an amateur, although the 3 losses came against some very tough competition on the amateur scene. His striking looks very good. He stays pretty much in perpetual motion, really likes to drag his opponents or pull his opponents into his shots, has some decent power as well. And I feel like as long as he can shuck off some of the takedown attempts that will likely be coming from Mendez, I think we'll see Holt really touch Mendez apart or pick him apart, maybe lead to a knockout. But I think Holt will be able to land more damage throughout this fight, and that should lead to him either winning this fight on the scorecards or getting a knockout. And I think he can pull off the upset as the dog here. Our next up, we got Guilherme Soares coming in at plus 165, going up against Robin Roos, who comes in at minus 190. Now, Soares took off a 7-year stint from mixed martial arts between 2017 and 2024, and now he's pulled off 3 straight victories since returning. All 3 of those wins came against very sketchy competition, although that last one was actually a DQ that he won after his opponent kicked him in the face while he was on the ground. Seemed like there was a little bit of Rodolfo Bellato acting there from the Soares side of things with, he got grazed with the kick. It didn't seem like anything that would have caused Soares to be stretchered out and put on oxygen to get out of that fight. So very weird circumstance there. He gives me Danilo Marquez vibes. He's a BJJ black belt, utilizing his size and strength to often wrap his opponents up, take them to the ground, and find submissions. But when he's forced to strike for longer periods of time, he does find himself having some issues. Or if he's fighting a grappler that has good enough submission defense, he really struggles to get off submissions off of his back. Now he's going up against Roos, who last time around made his Cage Warriors debut, where he actually got an immediate title shot against Dario Belandi, and he ended up losing that fight on the scorecards. Roos is more of a striker than anything in his matchups, and his defensive grappling does not look all that bad. He has a salty 7-5 record, but this guy's pretty good, and I think that he'll have enough firepower here to really put it on Soares. That could potentially lead to a finish for Roos as well. I think he'll be able to thwart the grappling and submission game of Soares, and I think that we'll see Roos get that knockout. Minus 190, not bad. I think that's kind of accurate where this line should be, so not a ton of value if you're looking to take that Roos money line. I think he wins, but one thing I actually wanted to see is what the total is set at. Because if we're getting an under 2.5 at decent enough money, I think that might be the way to go. I think we're definitely going to get some violence here, whether it's with Soares getting that submission or Roos getting that knockout. Yeah, it's set at 1.5 with a pick 'em price on either side there. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself in terms of taking the under 1.5. I feel like this is a matchup that might need a 2.5. So yeah, I'll go Roos by knockout. All right, next up, we got Gocha Shainidze coming in at minus 275, going up against Magomed Nazurov, who comes in at plus 235. Now, Shainidze comes in with an 8-0 record and really looks like he has an aggressive grappling game. He's finished 5 of his 8 opponents and faced some decent competition the entire way. It's no secret what he wants to do. In his last matchup, I wasn't a fan of this, but he did the fake glove touch, run into a takedown, and then eventually led to him getting a finish a couple minutes later after establishing that top control. His striking still seems to be a work in progress. That spot where I said he faked the glove touch, I think that was 2 fights ago now, because his last one was actually a 25-second knockout back in early August. He's going up against Magomed Nazurov, who has a 4-0 record as a pro. The first 2 opponents he faced were much tougher than his last 2 opponents, which is why you see him finishing his last 2 opponents pretty quickly compared to going to decisions and split decisions earlier on. As you would expect with his name, he wants to go out there and look for takedowns, wrestling, and top control, but it doesn't really look all that great. I think Shainidze is actually a little bit more well-rounded. I think he's a bit better in the grappling realm as well, especially with his BJJ. And this could be competitive early, but as we start to get into deeper water, I expect Shainidze to start rolling with this and pulling away here. So minus 275, a little bit wide, but I do think the Georgian ends up getting his hand raised here. But I'm excited to see what both these guys have to bring to the table. Next up, we got Daniil Prikaza coming in at plus 330, going up against Alvi Dasuyev, who comes in at minus 400. Now, Prikaza is a guy that has a very solid amount of experience. He's in the midst of a 3-fight losing streak right now, but all 3 of those losses were against legitimate competition. He was a former Open FC champion before he tried to defend it for the second time and ended up coming up short against a very tough opponent. His last fight was actually a split decision loss against former UFC fighter Alexei Kunchenko. He was on a 5-0-1 from 2019 to 2022, but then, like I said, is now on a 3-fight losing streak. He looks to be a hard-nosed striker that likes to crash the pocket with some combinations. He likes to move forward, throw big shots. His grappling game is kind of mediocre at best, but he's done a good job in terms of staying safe against most of these opponents. And he's faced some solid competition throughout his career, even including a second-round loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov back in early of 2019. Now he's going up against the undefeated Alvi Dasuyev, Dasuyev. I want to make sure I get that right. Who's 6-0, finished every single opponent in the first round, although he's run over everybody pretty easily, and we don't really see what it looks like when he's forced to deal with some resistance. Now, he went 13-3 as an amateur, so it's not like he's indestructible. He can definitely be defeated, and I really want to see what he looks like when he has to get forced to go into that second and third round, and if he's as dangerous with his game. He's very clean and crisp with his striking, good stinging power, and as you would expect with somebody with his name, obviously he has some good grappling and good scrambling skills as well. It's tough to really be sold on Dasuyev at minus 400 here, considering the crazy amount of experience advantage that Prikaza has here. And if Prikaza can survive that early onslaught from Dasuyev, he could take this into deeper water and probably show off his experience and veteran skills there. You know, if Dasuyev can't finish him quickly, Prikaza has the striking and, you know, has shown some decent durability at times that might allow him to give Dasuyev a vet lesson in this spot. So on paper, Dasuyev looks great. You know, he looks like he has all the goods. He looks like he has a style that could cause Prikaza a lot of issues. So I'm still going to go with him as my prediction, but I wouldn't mind a little bit of a shot on Prikaza as a big dog. Like I said, given the experience advantage he has, you know, it took Rakhmonov until the second round to finish him. So if he can show the type of durability he did that night here against Dasuyev, then we really get some answers about Dasuyev should he not be able to run over opponents as easily as he has thus far in his pro MMA career. So Dasuyev is the prediction, but Prikaza would be the bet considering the odds in the spot. All right, next up, we got Lucas Almeida coming in on short notice at minus 165 going up against Walter Cogliandro, who comes in at plus 145. Now, don't get Lucas Almeida mistaken with the UFC's Lucas Almeida. I believe that guy's still on the roster. This is the talent Lucas Almeida, as his nickname indicates. Solid fighter. Brings in a 3-fight winning streak with an 8-1 record. He's a BJJ black belt, and it's clear that he always prefers to take opponents to the ground and try to work that game of his. He trains out of All Star Sweden, which is the same gym as the guy challenging for the interim title in the main event. His lone defeat came 5 years ago when he got ground and pounded in the third round by a fighter that had over 4 times the experience that he had. He's a great fighter. He just got his BJJ black belt last month, but based on what we've been seeing from his tape, it's clear that's what he chooses to do more often than not, and that's look for chokes. Even though he's a short notice replacement here, I think this is a very winnable fight for him, and I think that's why we see him as the favorite in this fight. Now, Cogliandro had a 3-fight winning streak back in 2023, which led to a 3-fight losing streak in 2024, but he was able to snap that last time around as he got a submission, I believe in the second round or late first round of his last fight over a 13-11 opponent. That fight was back in June. I'd say the biggest win of his career was actually under the UAE Warriors banner when he took on Ali Al-Kaisi, who was I believe he was a 2-division champ and had just taken that fight against Cogliandro to stay busy, and he actually ended up getting knocked out by Cogliandro. So Cogliandro has some decent power. His defensive grappling is a bit of a question mark. That's where opponents have gotten the best of him before. His durability also seems to be a bit of a question mark, as his last loss came by first round knockout in ONE FC, very nasty knockout loss that he suffered there. He even got choked out by Solomon Simon, who I believe fights for Cage Warriors very shortly here. I don't know if it's actually he was supposed to fight on the Cage Warriors card, but then it was pulled out of the fight. But yeah, I like Almeida here. I think he'll be able to get Cogliandro into the grappling round, and I think probably by the second round we'll see Almeida sink in that choke and force the tap. I don't mind Almeida up to that minus 185, max minus 220 range. I just think he's that much better than Cogliandro here, as long as he can avoid the power that Cogliandro can tap into. But the official prediction will be Almeida, and Almeida by submission. All right, that brings us to our main event of the evening, which is for the interim LFA lightweight title, as we have Jefferson Nascimento coming in at plus 105, going up against Basinger Makaev, who comes in at minus 125. Now, we haven't seen Nascimento in action for over 2 years now, as the last time we saw him, he picked up a knockout victory over Gabriel Costa to earn the interim lightweight championship with his second round finish there. Nascimento normally showcases a mobile striking game where he likes to let go with his Muay Thai. He has a BJJ black belt, but I don't think he's all that good off of his back, where we've kind of seen him grind it out by better opponents there. And he does eventually work back to his feet, but I think he just eats up a little bit too much time seeking submissions that don't even end up getting that close. Then he eventually works his back to the cage, gets back to his feet, and then starts to let go with his Muay Thai from there. He's a solid fighter. Obviously, undefeated. I believe he's 11-0. Good prospect, but this layoff is not a good look for him, especially coming back and trying to defend that title against a killer like Makaev. Now, killer may actually be a stretch, right? Makaev's not really going out there and finishing all these guys. He's on a 7-fight winning streak. The only loss that he has in his career was his first pro fight back in October of 2021, where he got caught with a flying knee after a sloppy takedown entry, which his opponent clearly was able to time. But since then, it was a great learning experience because he's been able to go out there and outgrind all of his opponents. He has a couple of finishes sprinkled in throughout there as well, but for the most part, he likes to grind opponents down, utilize that cage clinch, drag them to the ground from there. He has great chain wrestling as well to go from one attempt to another. He has great cardio to go hard if he needs to. I believe he's the Fight Club Rush champion, which is a Fight Pass promotion based out of Sweden, or at least that Norwegian area. And he looks like the goods. He trains out of All-Star Sweden as well, so we know he has a good group of guys to train alongside, good coaches as well. And I'm kind of surprised he's only at -125. Stylistically speaking, he's a good enough striker to really be competitive on the feet, but grappling wise, I think he can really thwart the BJJ black belt of Nascimento and just keep him on his back. Again, I've said Nascimento struggles off of his back, kind of relies on his BJJ a little bit too much, and that causes opponents to be able to grind him out for that majority of rounds. So I really think Makaev will put it on Nascimento. This is a rude awakening to come back after 2 years on the sidelines to go up against a pressure fighter like Makaev, and I think we'll see Makaev show out here. So I love Makaev in this spot. -125 is a crazy line, unless I'm missing something here. I've bet on Nascimento in the past. I know how good he can be, but stylistically speaking, this is a horrible matchup for him. So I'm going to go Makaev, and Makaev probably by decision, and new interim LFA lightweight champion, Basinger Makaev. All right, there you go. A ton of regional MMA this weekend. We didn't do so well on PFL Europe this morning, but we're going to get it back with PFL MENA, which I'm going to be doing in written form on the Lock of the Night Patreon page. You can find that in the link in the description below. But we also have this LFA card going down. We have Cage Warriors going down. And then we end off the day with UFC Perth later on that night. So a ton of MMA covered on the Lock of the Night Patreon page. Check the link in the description below for that. Otherwise, good luck on all your action this weekend. I'll see you guys in a few hours, actually, for the UFC Perth prop drop. But outside of that, I'm done for the week. I'll be back on Sunday for the Contender Series breakdown. I'll see you guys then. Peace.